Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Crypto News Podcast. We are buzzing as always, hurting a little bit this morning as we were at Blockchain Futurist all week long. Shout out Tracy Leparulo and the whole Untraceable Events Inc. team. They threw an absolute banger of an event in Toronto again at the lovely Cabana Pool Bar, and of course Rebel. Just an incredible conference, some incredible speakers, really good people, great networking, great side events, and the drinks were flowing. So we're battling this morning, but the show goes on, baby. Podcast time. Super pumped to have the one and only Chris Yin on the show today, CEO and co-founder of Plume, which he founded in 2024 to redefine how people use and think about RWAs. He's leading the team, realizing the vision to simplify how users bring any kind of asset, including collectibles and alternative assets, in addition to traditional financial instruments on-chain. He has an accomplished track record as a product lead and investor with prior positions at Beluga, Scale Venture Partners, and Rainforest QA. We've been waiting for this one for a hot minute. We got another RWA GOAT coming on the pod today. We'd love to see it. Chris, welcome to the show, my friend. Pumped to have you. How you doing on this lovely morning?
Good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Yes, indeed. Pumped to have you on here. And for the listeners and not the viewers, I love your background. It looks like a nice little balcony you got, and of course we got the kid stuff all over the place. What's it like building a big old crypto company with a couple little ones running around?
Oh, it's a train wreck, honestly, but it's good. It's good. It keeps it fun and keeps it exciting. So wouldn't have another way. But
I love it.
Good.
But before we get into, of course, Plume and everything RWA related, I'd love if you could tell us a little bit about your past. Obviously, you had and have a really good track record as a product lead and investor. Talk about what you did at Beluga, Scale, Rainforest, any fun stories perhaps that, may be good for a fireside chat or anything of the like, and then we'll pop over to the crypto stuff.
Yeah, totally. I'll keep it light, and you stop if you want to talk about anything in particular. But I've mostly, like you said, in between kind of building things as a founder and a product person, and then slipping over to be an investor as well. So I was mostly doing a mixture of kind of like, financial software products before, and I just got sucked into it. We'd kind of come out of school trying to do the classic kind of like college startup ideas. You do like dating apps and food delivery services, all the shitty ideas.
Yeah, but that's when you're in uni though, when you're in college, that's the shit that you care about the most.
Exactly.
Like those are the things that would
problems,
those are the things that would make your life better. How I need the food I want ASAP, and I want to see some pretty girls and go on dates. So hey, I empathize with you.
So you had to do it. And so we started with that. And I remember we almost ran out of cash. At some point I realized, like, fuck, we're almost out of money here. And I'm going to have to get a real job if we don't figure this shit out. And so I was like, we've been like trying to build things for other people that we think they'll use. Why don't we like turn the script around and just build something for ourselves? And if we go out, if we go out and we waste this time, if we have at least one user and it's us, that's fine with me, And so we just look like we're awful at managing our like business and like the money and the financials. So we'll build some financial software and go from there. And the benefit was like, because of that, we sort of built it for ourselves, and it was kind of mobile first, one of the first people to do it, put in the app store. And then the minute we did it, just sort of took off, and it was able to, just really, bring in a bunch of users and customers and all that. And as things were melting down, we ended up, going out to try and raise a little bit of money because we realized it was starting to work. And through that experience, we got in touch with some people who knew some people, and ended up selling the company to a company called Coupa Software. And so that was kind of like how we got into all this nonsense. And then ran that, helped run product there for a long time, and took the company public a couple of years later. And so really got to see kind of like going from nothing to having like, how do you actually build a company? Yeah. After that, I was sort of hanging around and trying to figure out where to go, and got sucked into hanging around with other founders, just trying to kind of figure out where else to go, what to do. And through that, they'd called me, and a couple of friends of mine said, "Look, you can help me out. I raised a little bit of money. You should give me some money as a way to say thank you." And I saved you a spot in the cap table. And so I was like, "Oh, sure, I'll just fuck it. I'll chuck you some money." And through there, I realized that I was like, "Oh shit, this is angel investing. If that's angel investing, it's easy. I can just keep doing this." And turns out it's not easy, but I did love it, and I was just kind of spending my time hanging around with founders. Ended up doing a bunch of deals, and simultaneously went to a place called, one of my friends called me to go run product at his company called Rainforest QA. And Rainforest is a distributed product. This is where I kind of got into crypto too. Rainforest is a distributed platform, meaning you pushed a button and you had 60,000 people around the world that would come test your software, right? And so it was very much like Immunify or like any of these, or from Mechanical Turk or Scale AI, right? But the focus was for QA, right? It was there where, we always thought that the value was in the software itself. and the product. And at some point, I realized the community was actually the valuable part, right? Because they were actually doing all the work. We just built the software to do coordination. And so we put up a forum to ask them, hey, what do you guys like? What do you want? And like, how can we make this a better relationship? We said, look, we love working here. This makes sense. It's steady. It's great, blah, blah, blah. The one thing you keep making me off-ramp my points into my like shitty native currency, how about like Bitcoin and ETH instead? That's why I'd rather hold instead of like, my Argentinian dollars or whatever it might be. And that's when I was okay, shit, people want this thing. And so I just kind of started following it. It was right around DeFi summer. And I had a couple of friends who started crypto business at the time. And so just kind of following it, just got sucked into it. While I was doing that, a couple of my deals, when I was an angel, started to really go off. And so I popped over and started doing some angel investing. An venture firm called me to call me and kind of like, teach me how to do it properly. So I went to do venture for a couple of years, but I was still mentally just doing a lot of crypto and still investing a lot. And so a couple of years later, a couple of friends and I, my co-founders now, Teddy and Eugene, we were thinking about what to do and where to go, and ended up in the RWA crowd. So here we are.
That's super cool. And the walk into crypto, why? I mean, it seems like you had a pretty darn, again, good track record. You could have done a whole lot of the different areas, niches, subsectors of crypto. You chose RWA. And you guys started building this before it sort of got super trendy and really, popped off. Of course, you got the big raise not too long ago this year as well. Congrats on that. But why RWA of all the areas you could have gone into?
Yeah, honestly, I would have never picked it because, look, the truth is, like, I barely use these things, And I remember the time, thinking, like, God, like, I'm here to, like, fuck around with shitcoins, and I'm like, I'm literally doing a lot of DeFi and, like, yield farming and blah, blah, blah. And I would have never touched, like, a Maple or a Centrifuge, and it's not like I'm knocking those products. It's just like not something I would have done. So I would have never guessed we'd go down this road. The thing that was interesting about it was at the time, we always sort of like said, like, we're following what a bunch of users were doing. I'd always liked the story around onboarding new people, right? And thinking how to get more people into crypto. And the story was very simple. At the time, this 2 years ago, I mean, I think you remember this is sort of it was still like the depths of the bear. It's like not a very good time.
Yeah, it was a shit show. And the general sentiment, like,
and there was nothing to do.
No, and it wasn't fun either. There was no buzz. Like, you go to conferences, that electric energy was, was nullified. It was not there. And totally. It was different time back then.
We're just lying in the wreckage of FTX and Terra and all the nonsense, And I remember all the things that were happening at the same time was just like, how do we it really felt like everything was, how do we take the same ball of cash and try and squeeze more money out of it, right? Everything was around that. And so we were just sort of fixed on it's like, how could you bring more things in? Like, what are new things? And what are the dimensions of an idea that would work for that? And as we're screwing around with that, like, I had angel invested in a few RWA companies that I always liked that story. Things like sneakers company, the more like consumer facing. And my co-founder Teddy was at BNB Chain. He had seen a bunch of RWA protocols try to onboard onto BNB Chain now at the same time. And so both of us were sort of like, there seemed to be something here. Let's go talk to them and figure out what's going on. And like, we did a couple calls, and within, just like a couple of days, we realized very quickly that every single one had told us the same thing, regardless if it was a collectible or a financial instrument or some kind of alternative. No matter what, everyone said the same thing, which is like, actually getting this asset on chain is very, very difficult. And more importantly, the second part, once it's there, like, there's nothing that you can do with it. And it ends up being like a real problem for this whole thing. And so we said, look, like, let's just play around with this thing. And usually when the first time people tell you something and they all say the same thing, like, especially because they're your friends usually, it's bullshit. Right. And they're just telling you things to make you feel good. They're all like, yeah, we would use this. This sounds great. If we did something. And so we're like, okay, yeah, that sounds great. Let's just keep going. And then as we're making our way through the second 10, the first 10 called us again. We're like, hey, what the fuck, are you guys going to do this or not? Are we going to figure this out? And we're like, oh shit. Okay. Maybe there's something here. And so we went back and just talked to them, and we realized there was something there. So, we started just kind of working on some random, just started building things. To get them involved, and it sort of picked up on its own, and we really leaned into it from there. And this is, like you said, it was just mostly following our intuition around it, and then really just listening to developers, protocol builders, and users, and trying to get a sense of what was going on there. And a couple months later, we had a bunch of protocols, and then the ETF came out. And that's what really catalyzed and pushed a lot of things in the right direction. Because then a lot of hype parts started coming in. You had the treasuries coming up and blah, blah, blah. All it's sort of coming in from there. But, at the beginning, it was really just thinking about where is this going to go? And is the market sort of I always think at the end of the day, every idea is the same. That hasn't really changed over time. It's really just timing. Like that's 99% of it. And so, really, I think we just had the kind of right time, right place, and sort of had picked the right orientation. But again, we'll see where it goes. I think it's still early. There's still a lot to do here, and I think we've got like our own take on it that we think is interesting. But look, I think again, there's still a long way to go.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the setting the landscape there. Again, before we get right into Plume, you brought up a really interesting point, and this is my sort of main neg on RWA as well. The long-term outlook of it makes a shitload of sense, especially for those sort of consumer-facing assets like shoes, like sports cards, memorabilia, all that stuff where you really need to actually authenticate it. That's where the whole RWA thing really, really makes sense, right? It's the authentication of the real-world asset, which really moves the needle. But you brought up an incredible point, and what do you do with it? Like, is it really worth bringing it on chain and jumping through the hoops and all the bullshit like you discussed to get it on chain and then for it to just hang and chill there and simply act as a source of verification and maybe a more efficient and easier way to send it? I guess more interoperable, if you will, right? Send it to the next person. When the next person gets it, seeing the previous owners, making sure that it is the true verified asset. But what else could we do with it once it gets on chain? Like, how are we going to create an actual use case for that?
Totally. And look, the sort of like ideas around RWAs is always, like you said, the value in bringing it on chain is always like step 4 or step 5, which is like, at some point, sure, like I've got it's on chain now. And like, sure, now maybe I can like take a loan out against it, right? Or I could like put into a vault and it can earn something on the side for while it's there, right? Or I could maybe like do some looping or whatever it might be, right? Like think about like, with sneakers at least, the easy answer is like, like let's say if you want to buy like the new Travises that are coming out, right? I like push one button, like sweep the floor and get all of them at the same time instead of like waiting on some like broken ass website and like trying to get it and like get 6 months to come over here or something simple. Like look, a lot of like sneakers again are bought to be resold. I think it's 80% of sneakers are bought to be resold, right? That's when you think about like Jordans and some of these things, right? And the sort of deal, like take the Dior's, the Dior Jordans. Those are 10 grand a pair, right?
Yeah.
And so if you're going to buy those to speculate on, right? You're going to buy like, it's 50 to 100 grand of these things. You got to wait for it to get here. I live in SF, so you got to make sure once it gets here and I don't get robbed on the way, right? But now it gets here, I got to park it in my house and leave it here while I wait for this price to go up, right? And like, again, hopefully it's here by the time. And then I got to like package it up, send it out and do a whole thing. It's this ridiculous process. But like, that's the benefit of doing it on chain. Now, the problem is like all the things that are valuable, which is like the logistics, which is then like holding it and then like putting it into a vault while I'm holding it to like make some money or putting it or like all those things are step 4, 5, 6, right? Step 1 is like, you gotta find it, you gotta want it, you gotta buy it. Like those are the things, and those things are like pretty well served by the normal world today, right? And so you have to find, and I think that's been the mistake with RWA. So like conceptually, I guess like you said, it makes all the sense in the world, right? To be able to have this path, to have sort of a, provenance and know this is the real thing and all of that, right? And that's why everyone always talks about these sort of conceptual use cases. Let's do sneakers, let's do watches, right? Remember last cycle is like, buy a fraction of Patek or something, and like that's the thing people do. Or like, I'll buy like, or like everyone always talks about real estate, where it's like, I'd love to buy houses. Like, who the fuck's buying a house on chain? Nobody's doing that. So like, really you have to think about, in our opinion, the take was, what's going to be valuable day one to actually motivate the asset issuer to come on chain, right? Yeah. And it has to be an asset where once it lands on chain, it actually is more valuable, because crypto's like a great place to go raise money. So if we like take some asset and put it on chain, there'll be a bunch of people that want it, and you like have price discovery, and like you can really like get people to come into this thing. The truth is, like, crypto's illiquid as well, right? And so you take an illiquid asset, like some house or whatever, right? You put it on chain, it's become even more liquid. Like it's actually a worse idea at that point, right? And so you have to find something that like gets better by coming on chain, right? And find the mechanism that involves. And I think it's both a asset selection, right? But also like sequencing and a use case type thing, right? Like what are the types of things people do? And that's I think people have missed the mark. People have been more like attached to the asset, right? Meaning what assets could be on here versus thinking about what does the market want, right? And what is the market actually doing and who's actually here, right? Everyone in RWAs historically has been, in my opinion, like it's very TradFi people building TradFi products but on chain, right? And that's the idea. And ultimately, the problem with that is you end up building TradFi products, right? But like if you look at the audience on chain today, there are fucking no TradFi people here, right? It's crypto people, right?
It's us.
It's degens. It's exactly right.
No,
it's us,
true.
right? So like if you look at that, like that's been the mistake with all this stuff, in my opinion, right? It's not that it's wrong; it's that it's out of order, in my opinion. The audience is changing; it's growing. We get a broader set of people every day. But maybe we were 0% trad people now we're like 1%. It's still not that much, right? And so if you're going to build for that audience, right, which is fine with a KYC, which is fine with permissionless, fine with made big lockups, fine with like a 3% yield or whatever. Like, sure, then you can bring like a TradFi product on chain and you get the benefits of managing the back end through crypto. But today, that's not the case, right? At the end of the day, if I'm not getting like a 20% yield, I just don't care, you know? If I got to lock this thing up, like, can you imagine? The idea was always, how about we like take some money, we'll lock it into a vault for like 3 or 4 years, and we'll give it to like a Vietnamese auto shop, and then you can get like a 3% APY on it, right? That was like the whole promise of RWAs. I was like, dude, who the fuck's doing that? You know, like I got a lot of things to do with this money. I'm not like screwing around with that, right? Yeah. And so like that's why our orientation has been, in my opinion, different and just very different from the RWA story historically, which is, you know, we are trying to just do things that we would use ourselves, right? And I think if you follow, again, we've been following two things from the start of time, just following developers and then following like user behavior, right? People do this already today in crypto, right? When things are bad and risk off, what do? Right? You park your money in stables, put an Aave comp and garner some yield, right? Yeah. And that's where this came from. We realized 2 years ago, that's what everyone was doing. And you get 2% yield, right? Because it turns out people want to keep their money on chain, right? I don't want to take it out, but there's nothing to do here, right? And so, you know, when there was that first time in history, there's a 5% treasury off chain and you could actually bring that on chain. Then it got interesting because then it turns out people wanted that. And it turns out the number one product people want in crypto, the best people is the stablecoin, right? Which is the classic RWA, but it's packaged very differently than the classic view of RWAs, right? Yes. The stablecoin is crypto, right? It just looks and feels. It's got something under the hood, but it looks, feels, and smells like crypto. I can buy it, I can use it wherever I want. It's in different pools. It's interoperable. Like I don't even think about it as like a real thing. Right. And that's how it has to look. I think the packaging and the user experience around using that thing has to look and feel like crypto. Otherwise, you won't get an adoption. But if you do that, it turns out there's a tremendous amount of adoption for it. Turns out people all over the world want the US dollar. You just had to make it like usable to this audience, right? So anyway, that's how we think about it. And that's why like our take has been a little bit different than most. Of course, we can do it all, right? Our product and our, you know, we can talk more about Plume. Like we do support a lot of this more like insta use cases and stuff. But where I think the juice really is in that is how do you think about RWAs for crypto people, right? We call it RWA-Fi, or you know, we talk about a lot like sort of like RWA flavored crypto, which is like it's still crypto. You know, it just has a tinge of RWAs to it. You know, and that's how I think you begin to, you know, thread the needle and bring things in, right, and bring more people in, because it's useful on day one, right? Anyway, I'll stop there. Does that make sense?
No, that was a great little rip there. I also love the term RWA-Fi. I mean, let's jump into Plume now, because my next question was going to be, so, you know, we talked a lot about the issues and the bullshit and the problems and challenges of RWAs. One of my favorite parts about you guys is how, I mean, you literally just said it on your little spiel there. You're making it crypto-esque and crypto fun. So on the outside, the exterior, you see the nice shiny whip, which is, come in and, you know, deploy your assets instantly, which is sort of, you know, the classic RWA value prop. And then you guys have all the compliance stuff to make sure it is legit and authentic. And then you have the ability to trade, you know, make and conduct your portfolio, borrow, lend, farm. So like that's really the bread and butter of Plume, if I'm understanding it correctly, where you guys are taking the sexiness of the RWA and then the degen financial incentivized sort of, you know, product cycle of crypto and mixing that into one. Am I on the right track? That's
exactly
here?
Right. I mean, look, Plume is very simple. Like all we do is do two things. We want to make it the easiest place to bring real things on chain. And real things, in my opinion, is anything, right? There's both physical assets, right? Things like watches, sneakers, art, or whatever the hell it is, right? Non-physical assets, maybe it's like title, right? Or equities or bonds or whatever it might be. Yeah. Or digital assets, which is just data, right? You can bring on feeds of things that are super interesting about the real world and bring that on chain. Today, it's mostly crypto data on chain, right? It's just prices of tokens, right? But you can bring a lot of real things on real world information on chain as well. And I think it's about how do you make that easy? And then once it lands, right, and you actually tokenize and bring that on chain, how do you make it land into an ecosystem of people, dollars, and other protocols that make it useful, right? And so that's like the idea of Plume. And like those are the things that we work on from a product perspective. We build infrastructure and tooling to make it easy for that. And the three lanes that we think about is like, if you want to make it like RWA-Fi, which is like RWAs for crypto people, what are crypto use cases? And what do we care about in crypto, right? There's a bunch of things, but really I think there's three that stand out to me at least. First, is yield farming, is earning, right? Like we're here to make money, right? And here to do some looping or whatever it might be, but yield farming is a big use case. So how do we do an RWA flavor version of that? Number two is just classic trading, right? Spot stuff, right? Buy, trade, lend, borrow, doing a little bit of whatever it might be, right? How do you do that, but also with an RWA twist. And third, which I think is the most overlooked, right? But I think the most interesting one is speculation, right? Crypto is nothing, just like a lot of speculators. You know, we certainly love to gamble and love to see where things are going. And if that's the case, how do we do that again with an RWA twist, right? It turns out a lot of speculation in crypto. Like is about the real world already. Flip up deck screener any day of the week, right? I mean, you've watched these speeches from Trump or whoever it might be, right? Flip up deck, like every word he says, right? Pump.fun. I mean, I have a friend who do this on Pump.fun. They're spitting off one token for every single word, you know? Yeah. And so like, and that's to me, that's an RWA, right? Like that to me is, it's not about like this classic view. Tokenization, real things, sure, it's all thing, it's a subset of it. The totality of RWAs, in my opinion, is how do we express ideas about the real world on chain? How do I have an idea about anything, but in the real world and be able to push a button on chain and make it happen? Right, that's what it is, and that can be speculating against anything in the real world, right? You can create synthetics, you can do random stuff, or it can be buying a house, or it can be like buying equities, whatever it is. And how do you mix all of that together? That to me is like how we do. It's about the blending of both these ideas in these worlds versus like the trad view of like it's a bank, we're going to put fucking treasure on chain, you know? So anyway, does that make sense?
Totally. You're on a roll here, but we got to take a quick break. We got to give a huge shout out to our sponsor of the show, Prime XPT. And when we get back, we are going to keep talking about everything RWA related, taking the crypto native approach like Chris and the team are doing. And of course, the advantages of tokenizing absolutely everything, which a lot of people still don't fully get. However, Chris, and I think you and I are in the same yard. I think in 10 years down the road, everything's going to be tokenized. We're going to be trading everything against everything. You know, right now you have, I mean, the most common is obviously currencies. But I think you're going to be able to trade like stocks against stocks, not even just like stocks against currencies. But again, we'll get into all that fun stuff. Huge shout out to Prime XPT, longtime friends of CryptoNews.com and longtime sponsors of the Crypto News pod. We love Prime XPT as they offer a robust trading system for both beginners and professional traders. It doesn't matter if you're a rookie or a vet, you can easily design and customize your layouts and widgets to best fit your trading style. Prime XPT is also running an exclusive promo for listeners of the Crypto News pod. Use the promo code CryptoNews50, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Again, that is CryptoNews50, all one word, to receive 50% of your deposit credited to your trading account. Now back to the show with Chris. Let's jump into tokenization as a whole. This is, again, a big topic here, not just in crypto, sort of present day, TradFi people. I mean, I was just at the conference for the last 2 days. There's a lot of TradFi people in Canada. You know, we saw all the big banks there. They're more curious than, they're more curious than anything else, right? They're coming, they're asking us questions, some good questions, a lot of shit questions. But, you know, I mean, I guess some say there's no such thing as a bad question, but, you know, between you and I, there were some pretty bad questions that easily could have been done with a quick Google or ask of any, you know, ChatGPT, Bard, you name it, any of the like. But tokenization of everything. When do you think we get to this point where it's just everything is being tokenized? Because right now, like you and I said, the only people who are tokenizing shit it's us. It's the degens. You have a Trump talk. We're literally throwing every bloody word he says online. Anytime a new trend in the world, Huck to a Grill goes live 6 weeks ago, boom, 600 Huck to a coins, shit like that. When That's exactly right. Perhaps non-speculative, non-completely degenerative things, when are we going to see those kinds of things really, you know, moving the needle and going online?
Totally. It's the honest answer is I don't know, right? Now, our take is very simple. I think it's happening, whereas I don't think it was before, right? Yeah. I think with the ETF coming into play, I think with Larry Fink on stage yelling the word tokenization every 15 minutes, like that's good for all of this, right? And people are going to want to, right? Exactly, it is good, right? Every time he does it, like I pray, like every time the market goes south, I'm like, I just need Larry Fink. Someone give him the rock, and let's get him up there for 15 minutes, and let's get this back up, you know? So like, all of those things are positive, right? And I think, you know, with the way things are trending, no matter who gets in with Gensler going out or whatever, like it's all good stuff. And even if you look around, the U.S. is one market, right? If you look at Asia, everyone's like everything is lightening up, so all of that is positive, right? And we're all heading in the right direction. There's a ton of great stuff happening in Asia, in the Middle East, in Latin America, in Europe. I don't know, maybe not so much Europe, but like really all over the place, right? Like it's been a bunch of great stuff there. Now, it's still early. Right. And it's funny to see a lot of people in crypto when Larry gets on stage and says, everyone's like, holy shit, it's all happening tomorrow. We're all going to be rich. And there's just an enormous jump from that to that, you know, totally. And it's going to happen, but it's going to take time, right? These are big companies. You know, BlackRock, he's managing $10 trillion. Yep. The idea they're going to do anything quickly is a joke. And then people see $500 million in the Biddle, right? Their treasury fund. They're like, holy shit, it's happening. $500 million for them is marketing money, right? That's just like testing things out, right? Yeah. And so it's happening, but like you said, when you talk to them, you realize, fuck, we still got a way to go, you know? Like, so that's what happens. So I think you have to start out with different types of things today that are more, that you have to start with things that pull things in. right? Right, and have that draw, have that volume, have that attention to it, because that's how this happens, right? And so that's why we lean on some of the speculative stuff. We lean on some of the more like spot type things that have happened, while focusing on and like the types of assets, or maybe like more yield bearing, the things that we bring on as well, right? And like safe and stable, right? Again, treasuries, they're here on chain, right? It's still small, relatively speaking, but it's growing quickly. Stables here, right? Those are great things. And like, what are the sort of like contours of what that product is, and why do people want that, right? And so you kind of expand from there and build outwards. And then as the audience changes, things will change as well. Those products will come on chain. So a lot of that's happening, but it's going to take time. Like, and I think it's one of those things that will happen like slowly, and then very quickly. It's like the days are long, the years are slow. Like that's what the days are long, the years are fast, or whatever. That's what it's going to be. At some point, we're going to realize, holy shit, this is here. It's a thing, right? But it's going to be a grind every step of the way until there. But I would say if it wasn't happening, at least as an undercurrent, that would be bad for us, at least, or just like we might be too early. I think it's happening. All the conversations, like I'm always surprised how in tune with this some of these people are in the TradFi world, but it just takes time. You're moving an aircraft carrier. You're moving a tanker. Like it's not easy to do. So we got to give them the space and the time. And they're still recovering from a lot of the FTX stuff, or like the, sort of like at least mentally, right? And so like you got to let that shit clear and just let things like kind of come back to it. And then we'll come back in the right way. But it's happening for sure. So I think it's going to take time.
I agree. And again, with my next question in mind, I'm going to also keep in mind, which is one thing so far the best takeaway I've taken from you, and which I absolutely love, is just the sort of the product life cycle that you spoke about, and how right now we shouldn't be going all in to try to get TradFi people and Web2 people on. Like, first, let's build a really good product for the people who are going to use it, i.e. us, the Web3 degens. And once that's locked and loaded, then we'll get the masses in, which is how everything should be built, just like how Facebook was built for Harvard and then got the masses in. Same shit, same life cycle, same story.
100%.
Let's role play here. Let's jump ahead and let's say that the Web3 degen stuff is locked and loaded in RWA. What are the first assets you think are going to come on chain for the sort of IRL, maybe collectible, consumer-based stuff? Or is it going to be homes? Is it going to be cars, whatever? But like, what's the pitch you give to the TradFi people after you've told them exactly what you've told myself in regards to the product lifecycle and all that stuff? What assets and what sort of IRL examples you give them to get them like all horny and ready to go for RWAs?
Exactly. There you go. I love it. There's two answers here, right? And I'll give you what I think is the more interesting one, and then we can talk about specific examples. I think, look, if you think about every technology cycle, right, it's never been about taking what worked in like technology product in sort of like tech paradigm A and carbon copying it to tech paradigm B. So let's just take the desktop and mobile as an example, right? You had Facebook on the web, right? You had like, back in the day, it was like what? You go to Yahoo or the New York Times or whatever the hell it is on desktop, right? Yep. Or I guess even AOL back in the day, right? I didn't really use it, but like imagine like at some point somebody did that, right? Like that's what it used to be, right? Mobile came out, right? And sure, today I can use my bank like on my phone. I can like access Xfinity or my like internet provider or my ISP on my phone from there and like manage it. But that's not what started. That's not what sucked people on, right? What brought people on was like new things that took advantage of the native architecture of mobile, which is location, which is the small screen scrollability, right? So, and so Uber and Airbnb, that's what got people in here, right? Yeah. And that to me is like how you have to think about it. Like, sure, you can always carbon copy the same shit, but you can bring treasures and slap them on chain. That will happen, right? But it's the same shit as it was before.
It's not new though.
It's not new. So it will happen, right? Again, I can read the New York Times on my phone today, but that's not what got me to buy an iPhone. What got me, I was like, holy shit, like you can do really good, these things you couldn't do before. It has to be a new thing that takes advantage of it, right? So in my opinion, doing new things on chain that take advantage of the native architecture of crypto 24/7 by day one, right? Global all the time. Right, instant settlement, right, composability. If you lean into those things and have a blend where, sure, it's born on chain and lives on chain, it's something you couldn't do in the real world, that will bring people in, right? And to me, those are the things that matter. And that to me starts with more like, and that's why it's more, it's like a whole universe of things we haven't thought about, right? And that's why we focus on the infrastructure and the tooling. But like, I'll give you a couple quick examples. An example I use a lot about like what is RWAs and what you can do on chain and RWA speculation, RWA-Fi, right? Is like one of our protocols lets you take out a 50x lev long on Pokemon cards, right? And like, that's always a good example.
Wild.
Of like in my use of like an RWA use case, right? Like that to me is like, sure, it's like a real thing. We're talking Pokemon cards, but it's also crypto. We're taking off 50x. Like we're going to rip this. We're going to rip this thing, right? So like that's what that is, and that's an exciting example. Now, if you think about like how that works, it's not that we had to tokenize every card in the world to do that, right? We just brought in a feed and an index, and like you make it. It's not easy to do that either, right? But if you zoom out enough and you think it's enough time, you can really begin to think like, okay, what else could you apply that to, right? We have one that's doing this for GPUs and compute. We have one that's doing this for sneakers or whatever, right? Where it's just you bring on these synthetic feeds. Over time, what you can do though is you can really remix them in different ways, right? So the obvious one is like, let's just take watches, right? So you could do an index on watches, like lev long that or whatever. So that's a direct example. But that can't be done already today. There's not a very good way to sort of express the idea around that, right? If I'm like bullish on Patek as an example, maybe I gotta go like scrounge up $100, $100,000 and go buy Patek, right? But if I just want to take out like a lev long, a short-term thing on it, I should be able to do that through an index, right? And through an indice and through something like that. So that's one example. And then you can get even more esoteric, right? And I think this is where it comes up. Like we have a protocol that's working on the ability to sort of remix all these things in different ways. So you could like lev long an idea, right? So for example, you could like lev long, like if you're like bullish, like Mexican food is a simple example, you should be able to say, look, I'm just gonna take like 20x lev long like Mexican food, right? And what is, how do you build an index of Mexican food, right? It would be like maybe a combination of like, burrito sales plus like, bean, bean deliveries or like, commodity prices or like whatever the hell it is, right? You build an index and like now obviously you got a chart, right? I think the core primitive in crypto is like the 1 second chart or the 1 minute chart, right? Like how do you build that? It's not a prediction market. It's not like, oh, will burritos be more popular by 20? No, it's not. It's just like, how's the burrito like chart trending, right? Or whatever it might be, right? And like, that's what it should be. And I think that's when it gets more fun and interesting because now you get real people into do this kind of stuff. Because today, I think when you follow this stuff, people are using all kinds of random ways to approximate their ideas in financial terms, right? So I think if you look at take like NVIDIA as a simple example, right? I think 99% of people buying NVIDIA have no fucking idea what it is. They just hear the word, oh, AI is going to rip, I should buy NVIDIA, right? So that's what it is. It's an idea that you're just expressing about AI through NVIDIA, but NVIDIA is a sloppy vehicle to do it. Not because it's bad. I mean, NVIDIA's been on an absolute tear. But if you look at NVIDIA, like you have to think about, is it way over levered? You got to think about the PE ratio. You got to think about all this nonsense. There's like a lot to think about. Whereas I just want to lev long AI, right? Like very simple stuff, right? So you should go do that. If you look at WorldCoin today, it's another example. I think WorldCoin is an RWA, and not because there's a silver orb, but because it's a Sam Altman coin, right? When Sam gets fired, WorldCoin dumps. Right, when Sora, the new model comes out, WorldCoin rips, right? And like that's people are trying to do this already, right? And so that's the best way. Even Ondo is a great product, and they're also in the RWA world. But the truth is, Ondo is an RWA is a Larry Fink proxy, right? Because BlackRock is close to them, right? And so like if you literally go back and just like look at the chart, Larry Fink's on stage, Ondo goes up, right? It's as simple as that. And so those to me are the things that you sort of again like following human behavior, following what people are doing today. People are trying to express their ideas about things in esoteric ways, right? And we should be able to make it easier for them to do that. And so I think, taking the synthetics, but then is the first piece. Secondarily, is letting people mix them and create these things however you want, right? You should be able to like do this like pair trade. I'm like lev long Chinese food and like short American food or whatever it is, and like express that really simply. And that I think is a new thing that brings people in and is like it's good for the story, it's good for everything. And then people will start to okay, this is great. Oh, now we can tokenize things as well because now I want to actually own the thing because now I have an idea about what this market's doing. Right, I've begun to express. Now I want to own the underlying asset because it turns out leverage is dangerous or it's hard, and like spot is better, right? So maybe I do want to buy, I want to like buy a Mexican restaurant or whatever else, and like that's the easier way. I'll own a small share in it because it makes sense for me. So I think you have to do that. It has to suck people. Like meme coins are still one of the best places entry points for crypto, unfortunately, right? I love meme coins. Don't I trade shitters a lot too
because it's fun. And it's fun and it's new, and that I feel like that was the main theme of your last little 5-minute rant, which I absolutely loved. For us to go parabolic, even just for RWAs to really go mainstream, it's got to be new and fun. It can't 100%. Just be like tokenizing shit that we already have because it's not that new. It's the same feeling, maybe just with a different color. That's what, And there's got to be something brand new. And I also think there needs to be some FOMO aspect as well. Because we are humans at the end of the day. Like I remember back in 2008, 2009, I think that's when my friends and all of us got onto Facebook. Why did we do that? Because you missed out. There was a lot of FOMO if you weren't on Facebook. I was in, I think, grade 7 or 8 back in the day. I'm in 95. I'm 29 years old. I still remember that when it was like, this is fucking electric. You had to do this. Same with Instagram. Same with Snapchat, all that stuff. There is no, I mean, the biggest FOMO sort of use case in crypto right now is probably meme coins. Like, Stablecoins, and not even so much Bitcoin, but stablecoins have the most use case. Like we discussed, stablecoins are the goat of crypto. When it comes to fun and FOMO, it's memes.
100%.
So like I agree with you. I know we talked about a lot of applications, but baking this into an app, is this why you guys created Plume? So it's like, okay,
Yes.
we have that idea of what needs to happen in order for this to go mainstream. But now there needs to be a singular location where all the fun happens and all the shit goes down. And that's why Plume was created.
Yeah, it's exactly. I mean, I think, we could see where it was going, and there's no question in my mind as to where it's going. The question is timing, right? Yep. And how to get there. And when we looked at if we zoom in and say what's happening on a day-to-day basis, it turns out it's still just a bitch to do the most basic things in RWAs, right? And so, again, getting things on chain, right, no matter what it is, could take, we've heard anywhere from 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, even 24 months in some cases. It's ridiculous.
It's got to be instantaneous.
It's exactly, right? Like,
couple clicks.
I wasn't around building software in the 90s, but sort of at least what I've been told, it's sort of like before you could build any software, you had to raise $10 million and buy a bunch of servers and rack them before and spend 2 years before you could write a single line of code for your product. That's what it is today, right? Yeah. Having to do a bunch of nonsense for 2 years before you could even write a single line of code for your protocol doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So we got to take that to zero. That's the first step, right? Number 2, though, again, like you said earlier, I'm not a sort of purist that it has to be on Plume or whatever, right? I think Plume is the best place to be. And of course I want everything on Plume, because I'm a Plume maxi, of course. But the truth is, if it comes in anywhere, we'll make all of crypto better, right? Yeah. To be able to have an uncorrelated asset here, to have something that's diversified away from everything's just Bitcoin beta today, right? And so if we could have other things out there, that'd be great, right? And so having this land into an ecosystem, right? Again, talking about how do we make this useful day one, right? Is a combination of people, it's dollars, and protocols that are all sort of aligned in the same place, right? That can really feed off each other and build this community and this feel around it. That's what's going to get people. And sure, then if we really have this vibe already in crypto, and someone wants to go to Solana, it's fine. Again, I hope they come to Plume as well. We could do both, but. To me, you have to have this ecosystem in the beginning that's focused on this, right? In order to really cultivate that community, because it's still small, right? Even chains today, every chain has their own feel. Right. I mean, you know how this is, right? Every chain has their own community. You could do everything on every chain today, right? But everyone has their own feel, their own sort of community, their own vibe. And so I think we had to focus on that. It's almost as simple as you can if there's Chinese restaurants all over the city, but I still go to Chinatown when I need to sometimes, because 100%. It turns out there's a lot of good Chinese food there, it's it's easier to do all my shit at the same time, right? So it's almost as simple as that, right? Where or if I have to go somewhere and I need to go shopping, I go to this small store or I can just go to the fucking mall. Right. Yeah. It turns out there's a lot so I think there's value on its own in just putting things on one place. Yeah. But I do think even more than that, being able to work together, be able to get a lot of the infrastructure together for these folks and share a lot of it while we're building this whole market together. I think that's a huge part of the value as well. So yeah, that's exactly right.
Well said. Chris, what an epi, man. This was a lot of fun, and heck, we barely scratched the surface here. The great episode though. This was truly a blast. Before you let us go, any news, announcements, releases, products, services, you name it, popping off over the next couple of days, weeks, months? Totally. And mind you, this epi is going to air Monday the 19th, a couple of days here.
Yep, perfect. No, we're deep in our test net right now, and so we're a couple weeks in. We're about to enter the second phase of it, starting next week, and so we've seen a bunch of success in the first month here. Now, the next phase is going to be even better. We're going to have a lot of things that really showcase and highlight the RWA-Fi use case that we're talking about. So feel free to come over, join the test net. Obviously, test net's going to lean into mainnet, and things. We've come earn some miles and the whole thing, and so feel free to jump over and pop in and kind of see what we're doing here and join the community and all that, and I think you guys have a great time. But that's what's coming. We got a bunch of exciting announcements happening in the next few weeks. So just come in, join our Discord, and follow us on Twitter. Play around with the product and some of the applications we have, and a lot of announcements coming up, and stay tuned from there.
I love it. And last thing here, where can our listeners find you personally, and of course Plume online and on socials?
Totally. Look, we're everywhere, but I would say, Twitter is probably the best place. Our handle is just Plume Network, one word, PLUME, and then network. I'm on Twitter as well, just Chris Ian. You'll find me all over Plume's Twitter as well. So, hit me anytime there. And then also Telegram. Our team is, we're deep on Telegram. We're deep on Discord. Come to the website as well. We've got a bunch of places there you can interact with us. And so, look, we're all over. We go to all these conferences as well. So if anyone is out there at KBW over the next few weeks, Korea Blockchain Week or Token 2496, Singapore. We'll have a whole thing there. Our team will be there. You can come meet us in person. We love to, whether it's just talk RWAs or just talk some shit or talk shop or drinking or whatever, like come through. We have a good time and come hang out with us. But we'll be around at all the different events and, find us on the web or find us in IRL.
I love it. And last thing too, the website, man, one of the cleanest ones I've seen. Whoever did your website, they need a raise. Jeez Louise. Well done. I don't know who that was, but clean website. But Chris, really appreciate the time here. This was an absolute blast. Got to have you on. 5-6 months from now, and I'm sure you guys will be live. And we'll do round 2. We'll jump back into RWAs, but appreciate it and can't wait to have you on for the next one.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And, definitely love what you guys are doing here. We'll catch you soon.
Appreciate it. Folks, what an episode with Chris Yin, CEO and co-founder of the one and only Plume. What an episode. Literally a deep dive on nothing but RWAs, talking about a little bit of everything. Advantages of tokenizing assets, RWA-Fi, challenges in the space, deploying assets, Plume's unique offerings, alternative assets for retail investors, some loans as well, and of course, Chris put on a little masterclass in understanding the crypto product lifecycle and knowing your audience. Huge shout out to Chris and the team for making this happen. If you guys enjoyed this one, I hope you did. Please do subscribe. It would mean the world to my team and I. Speaking of the team, love you guys. Thank you so much for everything. Eustace, you are the GOAT. I love you, my man. And back to the listeners, love you guys. Keep on growing those bags and keep on staying healthy, wealthy, and happy. Love y'all and see you on the next one. Ciao.